Okay, let's unpack this. Today, we're really going far beyond uh, surface level psychology. Our mission, as we embark on this deep dive, is to disassemble and then, painstakingly reassemble something truly profound: the human motivation stack.
Hmm.
This isn't just about understanding why people do what they do. It's more like being the chief engineers of the human psyche, getting to the bedrock of human behavior and, crucially, the very origins of human conflict. We're diving deep into the raw biological drives that dictate our most primal urges, the intricate social dances we perform daily, the subtle vulnerabilities that make us predictably irrational, and the almost metaphysical physics of desire that collectively create the reality we all experience. Think of it as peeling back layers one by one to reveal the intricate machinery beneath, and ultimately to provide you with nothing less than a map of conflict itself.
And that's precisely the ambition here. Our journey today is less like a casual stroll through a self-help book and more like a detailed engineering deep dive, really. We're forging a unified theory, a comprehensive understanding that connects the dots from the rawest biological impulses all the way to the almost metaphysical engines of desire that shape our interactions and even our civilizations. Because, much like complex systems described in Antifragile, human psychology is just teeming with interdependencies and nonlinear responses, simple causal associations. They're often misplaced. You can't truly understand the whole by just looking at individual parts in isolation. It doesn't work. Our aim is to bring profound clarity to that inherent complexity, to see how these seemingly disparate forces interact to produce the world as we know it.
Okay, so let's start by laying the absolute foundation, the very bedrock upon which everything else in our motivation stack is built. This is where the story of human motivation truly begins, right? At its most fundamental level. Layer one, the biological substrate. This is inspired by Richard Dawkins' The Selfish Gene.
hmm This first layer, it represents the raw foundational hardware of human motivation. Its core function, its singular relentless goal, is what Dawkins termed the ruthless selfishness of genes. These are the silent underlying drives for survival and reproduction that operate beneath every conscious thought and action, influencing us at a level far deeper than we often perceive. Dawkins famously illustrates this by stating that genes are the fundamental units of natural selection. They are the basic things that survive or fail to survive, forming lineages of identical copies. Our individual bodies, our entire conscious selves, are essentially just vehicles that genes construct and operate to propagate themselves into the next generation. It's a profound reorientation of our perspective on life itself, really.
That concept alone is quite mind-bending, isn't it? When you really dig into it, I mean, it changes how you view so much of human behavior. This gene-level selfishness, this drive for replication, it often manifests as what we perceive as individual selfishness in our daily lives. From evolutionary standpoint, the idea of, universal love and the welfare of the species as a whole simply do not make evolutionary sense. It sounds harsh, but
But it's the logic of the gene.
exactly. It's not about the good of the group, but the propagation of the individual gene. Consider how species achieve a kind of stability in an ecosystem. It's not through some grand cooperative agreement, is it?
No, not at all.
It's through the accentuation of competitive asymmetries. Lions become incredibly proficient at chasing, antelopes at running away. Each specializes in its art, and this divergence creates a stable, albeit fiercely competitive ecosystem where each is simply striving to maximize its own genetic success.
Precisely. And the implications of this extend even into what we might consider the most sacred and protective bonds within families. Dawkins explores the fascinating and somewhat chilling concept of the battle of the generations. Imagine, for instance, a gene within a baby swallow that subtly increases its likelihood of tipping a rival egg, perhaps a sibling, out of the nest. Why? Because by eliminating competition, that baby swallow secures a larger share of parental investment, more food, more attention, better chances of survival, and ultimately reproduction. This isn't a conscious malevolent act by the baby, of course. It's a deeply ingrained genetic strategy. If such a gene for fratricide, as he puts it, increases the probability of its own replication, it could conceivably spread through the population. It's not about the individual's comfort or the immediate family unit's well-being. It's about the relentless cold calculus of the gene's survival and propagation. So this biological substrate, layer one, provides those fundamental, almost primal impulses, the raw desires for survival and reproduction that all the upper layers of our human Motivation stack must then try to manage, redirect, or even, as we'll see, exploit.
That's a stark, almost brutal reminder of the forces truly at play. It really underscores how much of our underlying programming is driven by these deep evolutionary imperatives. So, okay, with that primal hardware as our foundation, how do we as individuals manage to navigate the world without constantly colliding, given these inherently selfish drives? That's where our next layer, the social protocol interface, comes into play. Layer 2.
Right. If the biological substrate is the raw instinctual hardware, this layer is the social operating system.
Right.
Layer 2. Its primary function is to enable cooperation and significantly reduce friction among individuals who are, let's remember, still fundamentally driven by those often selfish biological imperatives. This layer describes the social software we develop and employ to navigate interpersonal dynamics effectively, establishing norms and behaviors that allow us to live, work, and even thrive together in groups. Carnegie's principles, when viewed through this lens, aren't just polite suggestions or superficial charm. They're incredibly effective, almost engineered protocols for satisfying the deep-seated biological needs for security and importance in others, but crucially, with the least possible cost and maximum benefit to ourselves.
It's a brilliant reframing of what might otherwise seem like simple advice, isn't it? Think about the profound impact of simply remembering someone's name. Seems small, but it's a powerful social protocol. Franklin D. Roosevelt, despite the immense demands of his presidency, apparently made it a point to remember the names of mechanics he met. This wasn't just a political trick. It made those individuals feel seen, valued, important, tapping into their fundamental need for recognition. Similarly, Edward M. Sykes Jr., this story goes, retained a crucial account not by charming the executives, but by connecting with seemingly unimportant people like soda clerks and sales clerks, remembering their names, making them feel significant.
Yeah.
These aren't just nice gestures. They foster loyalty, goodwill, a sense of belonging, all essential for seamless cooperation and building robust social networks.
Absolutely. It's about making people feel genuinely valued, which in turn unlocks their willingness to cooperate. Another powerful tactic Carnegie describes is cultivating shared enthusiasm. Mr. Duvernoy, for example, faced a difficult hotel executive he needed to influence. Instead of directly pushing his own business agenda, what did he do? Duvernoy took the time to discover what truly interested the man. It was his passionate involvement with the Hotel Greeters of America Society.
Okay.
By engaging with the executive's bubbling enthusiasm for his passion, Duvernoy built an authentic rapport and subsequently influence. This demonstrates that understanding and connecting with another person's genuine interests, rather than immediately imposing your own, is a far more effective protocol for building bridges and achieving shared goals. It signals respect for their inner world.
And that leads directly into the core human need for autonomy, doesn't it? People inherently prefer to feel they are buying of their own accord or acting on their own ideas. It just feels better.
Of course.
Consulting them about their wishes, wants, their thoughts is a powerful, almost foundational tactic for gaining their cooperation. Mr. Seltz found this when people fulfilled a moral bargain after being consulted and given ownership over a decision. Eugene Wesson, a salesman, learned this the hard way, apparently losing countless thousands of dollars in commissions before realizing that letting prospects feel they were part of the decision-making process was key to closing deals. It's about respecting their agency, which in turn gains their trust and cooperation rather than resistance.
Building on that and reaching into more modern insights, Never Split the Difference emphasizes the importance of creating unconditional positive regard. The ultimate goal in a high-stakes negotiation isn't just to get a yes, but to achieve a "that's right" moment.
Right. I remember that.
When someone says, "that's right," it signifies a deeper level of understanding and affirmation they feel truly heard and acknowledged, which leads to an atmosphere of respect and open dialogue, crucial for moving forward constructively. It's a subtle but critical social protocol. Similarly, the charisma myth highlights warmth as a key component of charisma. Warmth makes people instinctively like and trust you, facilitating smoother social interactions and potential cooperation, even if it requires conscious effort to access and express it. So this social protocol interface, layer 2, is our first line of defense, really, attempting to harmonize our raw biological drives with the needs of group living, setting up norms that can then be, as we'll uncover, either leveraged by the next layer or profoundly distorted by the metaphysical desire engine.
Okay, so we have the primal drives, layer 1, then the social software to manage them, layer 2. But no system is perfect, right? Every piece of software has its quirks, its shortcuts, its potential vulnerabilities. Which brings us to a really compelling part of our stack, Layer 3, the vulnerability layer. This is inspired by Robert Cialdini's principles of influence.
This is where things get truly insightful, because this layer identifies the inherent vulnerabilities or cognitive shortcuts embedded within our social operating system. These aren't mere tricks. They are deeply ingrained biases and mental heuristics that often bypass purely logical processing, making us, as the title of Dan Rayleigh's influential book suggests, predictably irrational.
Yeah.
We're talking about direct exploits of our built-in social and biological protocols. A prime example is anchoring in arbitrary coherence. Initial values or prices, once contemplated, become powerful psychological anchors that unconsciously influence subsequent decisions, even if that initial anchor was entirely arbitrary.
It's incredible how easily our perception of value can be manipulated by these anchors. Think about Starbucks, right?
Classic example.
Before they came along, most people were anchored to the idea of coffee costing, what, $1 or $2?
Very much.
But Starbucks successfully shifted that price anchor. They created an upscale ambiance, a premium experience, a different vocabulary for coffee.
The whole vibe.
Exactly. They created a new context that made a higher price, say, $4 or $5 for a latte feel coherent, not just arbitrary. Our minds, once exposed to that new anchor, adjusted our acceptable price range accordingly. And suddenly, premium coffee felt like a reasonable indulgence. It's a powerful illustration of how these mental shortcuts can be leveraged, and it's not just about prices.
Absolutely. Our minds, much like they fall for visual illusions that distort what we see, also present us with decision illusions. We don't operate directly on objective truth, but rather on our representation of reality, which is often heavily filtered, interpreted, and distorted by our senses and brain. These filtered perceptions are the very input we base our decisions on. This means our judgments and choices are fundamentally built upon an imperfect, subjective reality, which makes us susceptible to specific kinds of influence.
And it reveals itself in our ethical behavior, too. There's a fascinating aspect to our tendency to rationalize petty dishonesty. We're remarkably adept at justifying minor unethical acts, especially when they involve non-monetary items.
Oh, yeah.
Think about taking office supplies from work or a can of soda from the communal fridge. Most people wouldn't steal $100 from the petty cash box, but they might rationalize taking a few pens thinking it's not real money or everyone does it or it's part of my overall compensation.
The little stories we tell ourselves.
Exactly. This reveals how we find ways to bypass strict logical or moral rules when the perceived cost or consequence is low, often heavily influenced by the social context and our ability to tell ourselves a convenient story.
This also highlights the power of specific phrases and negotiation tactics that directly leverage these vulnerabilities. Consider the "before you make your mind up" tactic. This is a magic phrase from negotiation. If someone is leaning against your idea or about to make a snap negative decision, this phrase keeps the conversation open.
Buys you time.
Exactly. It gives you a crucial window to represent facts, address their concerns, and allow the other person to truly know what it is that you are saying no to. It subtly delays their snap judgment, creating valuable space for influence and a more considered decision. Similarly and counterintuitively, getting a no at the beginning of a negotiation can actually be an advantage.
That one's tricky.
It is, but when a counterpart says no, they feel in control, they've asserted their autonomy, and having done so, they often become more psychologically ready to engage further. This shifts the power dynamic in a subtle but significant way, making them feel like they're leading rather than being pushed.
And we can't talk about vulnerabilities without acknowledging the planning fallacy and overconfidence. Projects consistently take longer and rarely less time than initially estimated, right? It's not just external factors. It's our own ingrained optimism bias and overconfidence. It's a pervasive psychological quirk in how we forecast and plan. I think we've all fallen prey to that, haven't we? My last home improvement project certainly took longer and rarely less time than I optimistically estimated.
We've all been there.
The anecdote of Professor Triffat, an expert in rational decision-making who couldn't apply his own methods to his personal career decision, is a stark illustration.
He knew the theory.
Knew it inside out. But in practice, he too fell prey to these very decision illusions. This layer of vulnerabilities you see is deeply intertwined with our biological needs, our desire for security, belonging, validation, and it is precisely what the deepest layer, the metaphysical desire engine, can then exploit to fuel its own agendas, sometimes with devastating consequences.
Absolutely. These are the chinks in our psychological armor. They're not weaknesses in the moral sense, but rather inherent features of how our minds are wired to make quick judgments in a complex world. They are the entry points for deeper, more powerful forces.
Which catapults us to layer 4, the metaphysical desire engine, a profound concept directly inspired by René Girard's mimetic theory. This is the deepest layer, the true source code of what we desire in the first place, and, critically, how this desire itself generates conflict and competition. This is where our understanding of human interaction gets really profound, really deep.
Indeed. Girard's core insight is mimetic desire. The profound shift here is understanding that we often don't intrinsically desire objects for their inherent value. Instead, we desire them because others, our models, desire them. Think of it like this. If you walk into a room and see an apple on a table, you might think, that looks good. Maybe. But if you walk into the same room and see someone else intensely gazing at that apple, their desire for it, that is what triggers your own desire. The focus shifts entirely from the object's inherent utility or beauty to its value as mediated by another's desire. We learn what to want by imitating the desires of others.
So it's not just about wanting the apple, it's wanting the apple because someone else wants the apple. That's a fundamental difference.
Huge difference.
And when two individuals or groups fixate on the same object because of this mimetic desire, it doesn't just lead to mild competition.
No way.
It inevitably escalates into mimetic rivalry. The value of that object then becomes incredibly amplified, not by its utility, but by the very act of competition itself. It creates a self-reinforcing feedback loop of escalating tension and rivalry. You want it more intensely precisely because they want it. Their desire fuels yours, and your desire fuels theirs.
And this escalating mimetic rivalry, Girard posits, can lead to extreme outcomes, including collective violence. He suggests that in archaic societies, when mimetic tensions became unbearable, they often coalesced into a founding murder or a collective expulsion of a scapegoat.
A scapegoat.
Exactly. When this violence is directed at a single identified scapegoat, it paradoxically restores order to the group. This mechanism, in Girard's view, can even be the origin of archaic sacred rituals and cultural norms, a dark, hidden logic for maintaining social cohesion. This isn't just history, it's a primordial programming of group intelligence, a dark mechanism for resolving unbearable internal tensions. In Girard's interpretation, figures like Jesus discerned how Satan can be made to cast out Satan by unmasking this violent logic of archaic sacrality, revealing its evil through a faithful representation of collective murder. This implies that understanding this mechanism, shining a light on this hidden engine of conflict, is the first crucial step to escaping its powerful, often destructive hold on human societies.
That's an astonishing and truly unsettling insight. It explains so much of what seems like irrational group behavior, doesn't it? And this profound understanding actually resonates with ancient wisdom. Marcus Aurelius, for instance, writing in his Meditations. He explicitly warns against vehement desire for posthumous fame, pointing out that those who remember us will also die, and questioning what is praise, except indeed so far as it has a certain utility. This directly challenges the mimetic desire for external validation and recognition that drives so much modern behavior.
Absolutely.
He's essentially telling us to question if our desire for external praise and status is truly our own, or if it's mediated by what others might think and want for us. Are we chasing an echo?
He takes it further, advising us to throw away the thought, how thou shalt seem to others, and be content if thou shalt live the rest of thy life in such wise as thy nature wills. This provides an ancient philosophical counterpoint to being caught in the cycle of mimetic desire and external validation. It's an internal call to authentic desire, to find satisfaction in living according to one's own principles, rather than constantly seeking external affirmation or competing for perceived status. This metaphysical desire engine, layer 4, is truly the prime mover of conflict. It dictates the nature of the game that the social protocols attempt to regulate and the vulnerabilities exploit. It can even, remarkably, override both rational social behavior and biological self-preservation in its relentless pursuit of a rival's defeat or a model's desire.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. Now that we've laid out the 4 distinct layers from our biological blueprint to the engine of our deepest wants, our main task now is to pull it all together into an advanced integration, a truly unified theory of social conflict. What happens when these layers collide and amplify each other? This is the core, right?
This is the heart of our analysis. The most potent connection, the one that dramatically amplifies everything we've discussed, is how Girard's concept of mimetic desire profoundly intensifies Cialdini's principle of social proof. When we see others desiring or pursuing something, It's not just a simple cognitive shortcut, a rational assessment that, oh, everyone else is doing it, so it must be good.
It goes deeper.
Much deeper. It taps into a deeper, almost pre-rational urge within us to conform, to compete, or even to surpass. Their desire fuels our own, not just informing it. We're not just observing, we're internalizing their desire, making it our own, and often magnifying it in the process. It becomes an almost irresistible mimetic pull.
So it's a powerful feedback loop. You see this play out constantly and perhaps most starkly in financial markets with what's often called herding like cattle behavior.
Oh, absolutely.
Nassim Nicholas Taleb highlights how security analysts are often worse at predicting, but ironically have greater faith in their own skills despite repeated failures.
Yeah, the confidence paradox.
Right. They see others making certain investment moves, and even if their own logic or past experience contradicts it, the mimetic pull to follow the perceived success of others, the social proof overrides their rational assessment. It's not just that they think others might know something they don't, it's that the desire to be part of the winning crowd or the fear of being left out becomes so strong that it distorts their judgment. This mimetic striving for perceived success and validation becomes more potent than objective analysis. Furthermore, this leads to a critical insight. Most of what we perceive as irrational conflicts are not primarily driven by the biological substrate, Dawkins' basic survival drives. Instead, they are fueled by hidden mimetic rivalry. Individuals become so fixated on defeating a rival, who is often also an unconscious model for their desire, that they make profoundly self-destructive choices, even against their own basic self-interest.
This hidden conflict often trumps fundamental biological needs and rational social behavior, leading to outcomes that defy common sense. As Jean-Paul Sartre famously put it, hell is other people, especially when our validation, our very sense of self-worth, is tied to their perception of us or what they possess. This creates significant social consequences of the appearance of continuous failure, making us willing to suffer immense personal costs just to avoid the perceived humiliation of losing to a rival.
And this spirals into a truly unsettling insight from Girard, the concept of becoming a monster.
Yeah.
In escalating mimetic rivalry, each party tends to become more and more like the monster they are fighting. They lose sight of their original goals, the actual object of desire, or even their own well-being in the all-consuming pursuit of the rival's defeat.
It's a spiraling, self-consuming process where the distinction between challenger and challenged, victim and oppressor just blurs.
This, right here, is the ultimate map of conflict itself. It's not about the object, it's about the relationship to the rival, and how that relationship shapes and often distorts our desires and actions, often leading us down paths we never intended to take. Okay. Now that we have this unified theory, this comprehensive understanding of the human motivation stack, let's put it to the test. We're going to run some psychological war room simulations, applying the entire stack to complex combat scenarios where pure logic alone just isn't enough to understand or resolve the situation. Ready?
Let's do it.
Scenario A, quiet betrayal, the covert undermining.
All right. Here's the situation. You have a trusted business partner who, without any clear logical reason on the surface, subtly undermines your decisions in meetings, seeks credit for your projects, and generally works to diminish your standing.
Okay, surface diagnosis first. If we apply Carnegie and Cialdini, this is a clear and direct violation of established social protocols.
Big time.
The partner is not making you feel important or valued. In fact, they're doing the opposite. As Never Split the Difference would highlight, this behavior actively fosters an atmosphere of confrontation, distrust, and lies. They might also be subtly exploiting influence principles, perhaps leveraging their own authority or our liking for them to subtly gain favor with others in meetings. Or crafting a convenient narrative fallacy, a coherent but often misleading story about events that makes their actions seem justified in hindsight.
Making themselves look good.
Exactly. And from the extreme ownership perspective, this is a classic case of individual ego and personal agenda getting in the way of the mission. The partner is blaming others instead of looking at themselves when things go wrong and actively undermining the collective effort for personal gain.
But for a deeper diagnosis, applying Girard's insights, we see this isn't just about rational project success or simple ego. The true object of desire here isn't just the successful project. It's something far more profound. Recognition, status, and perceived value within the organization.
Oh.
Your partner views you not merely as a colleague, but as both a rival and an unconscious model for what they desire. Your competence, your ideas, your professional standing, perhaps even the respect you command. This creates a hidden mimetic rivalry for professional prestige. The core conflict isn't rational. It's not about the project's success or failure, but deeply mimetic, driven by an intense desire for validation and status that mirrors or is triggered by your own. They want what they perceive you have, and maybe the easiest way they see to get it is to diminish you.
So how do we intervene in such a delicate but destructive situation? What's the protocol?
The first protocol is to actively work to decouple this mimetic triangle. You need to strategically shift the object of desire away from individual credit. Explicitly reflect or transfer praise and glory to others, including the partner, and give people ownership of your success, as suggested by the charisma myth.
Spread the credit around.
Exactly. This consciously diffuses the mimetic tension and reduces the envy that fuels the rivalry. Internally, you need to adopt an extreme ownership mindset. Acknowledge that everything that happened on the battlefield or in the project was ultimately your responsibility. This allows you to remove individual ego from the equation and focus all about the mission, making it clear that the enemy is outside the wire, the external challenges of the project, not within the team.
Unite against the real problem.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Finally, instead of the direct confrontation that could escalate the rivalry, you lead up the chain of command through influence, experience, knowledge, and sheer professionalism without relying on positional authority. This creates a unified front, elevates situational awareness, and strategically addresses the rivalry without directly engaging in it head-on.
Okay, makes sense. Let's move to scenario B, irrational option, the escalating bidding war.
Next scenario. You're in crucial negotiations to acquire a company that fits perfectly into your strategic vision. Suddenly, a competitor enters the fray and drives the price far beyond the company's real objective value, turning what should be a calculated business deal into a heated battle of pride.
All right, surface diagnosis again. This is a classic anchoring effect at play, isn't it?
Definitely.
The initial bid or the perceived market value acts as an anchor, but the subsequent escalation pushes far beyond any rational economic assessment. The bidding becomes completely detached from the company's actual inherent value. There's also powerful emotional contagion and hurting at work here.
Yeah, you see it all the time.
The competitor's aggressive bidding creates a social proof effect. They want it, so it must be valuable, even if that's not objectively true. This also appeals to a basic human aversion to losing, even if winning means overpaying significantly. It's classic herding like cattle, ignoring objective analysis in favor of following the perceived momentum. You could even try the before you make your mind up a phrase with the seller to create a moment of pause. Maybe make both parties reevaluate if they are truly saying no to their rational self-interest by letting emotions dictate the price.
Possibly. The deep diagnosis here, though, is a textbook case of core mimetic rivalry. The true object of desire has profoundly shifted. It's no longer the inherent value of the company itself. It's the symbolic victory over the rival, the prestige of winning the deal.
It becomes about beating them.
Exactly. Each party's desire for the company is intensified precisely because the other desires it, spiraling into a battle of pride where the actual asset becomes secondary to the contest. This aligns perfectly with Taleb's observation of the quixotic overconfidence of corporations and entrepreneurs, where the competitive drive leads to decisions like wildly overbidding that defy logical economic forecasting and prudence. The real objective becomes the rival's defeat, not the acquisition itself.
So, for an intervention in this escalating situation, what do you do? Just walk away.
That's one option, a tactical withdrawal from the rivalry. By strategically removing yourself as a direct rival, you might just break the mimetic loop. This could significantly deflate the perceived value of the object for the remaining competitor, as their desire was largely a reflection of yours. When their model of desire you is gone, the intensity of their own desire can often diminish. You also need to redefine your own object of desire. Shift your focus from acquiring this specific company to achieving strategic growth and value creation through other non-rivalrous means. This might involve identifying alternative, equally attractive opportunities that are not subject to the same competitive pressures, allowing you to achieve your true business goals without falling into the mimetic trap. And critically, you need to employ the FBI hostage negotiator technique. Find a black swan.
Okay, explain the black swan again in this context.
Right. So a black swan, as Chris Voss teaches, isn't just any hidden piece of information. It's a game-changing, often unexpected insight that fundamentally shifts the entire negotiation landscape. It's that one detail, a hidden liability of the target company, an overlooked market trend, or even a competitor's secret motive, that, once uncovered, completely reevaluates the true worth of the deal. Proactively seek between 3 and 5 pieces of information that, were they to be uncovered, would change everything. Such a black swan can fundamentally disrupt the mimetic cycle by introducing a new, objective reality that punctures the inflated, rivalry-driven perception of value.
Got it. Okay, scenario. Say, self-destructive client, the vengeful pursuit.
Our third and final simulation. A client rejects a clearly profitable settlement in a legal case, a deal that would secure their financial future. Instead, they insist on pursuing a losing battle to defeat the other party, even if it leads to their own financial ruin.
Wow. At the surface level, this is a powerful emotional override of logic. That's clear.
Very clear.
The client is unequivocally prioritizing emotional satisfaction. The perceived victory of defeating the other party, or perhaps inflicting harm over their rational self-interest of a profitable settlement and personal security. Their decision environment is being filtered and, in fact, distorted by powerful emotions, leading to decision illusions, where the perceived emotional gain outweighs all logical costs. They are placing an irrationally high importance on inflicting defeat, ignoring personal security and economic needs that Carnegie's principles would suggest are fundamental to human well-being. What's also potentially at play here is the influence of trauma. The Body Keeps the Score emphasizes that changes in cognitive patterns are often rooted in unresolved trauma memories rather than logical narratives.
That's a crucial point.
The client's self-destructive, vengeful drive to defeat the other party could easily stem from past experiences of powerlessness, with their current behavior serving as a maladaptive coping mechanism to regain a sense of control or justice, however destructive that pursuit may be.
This is where Girard's deep diagnosis is so critical, revealing the true engine behind such seemingly irrational behavior. This is a classic, stark case of escalated mimetic rivalry. The true object of desire for the client is not the settlement itself, nor their financial well-being, but the symbolic victory, the humiliation, or the suffering of the opposing party.
It's all about the other guy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
This is fueled by intense mimetic rivalry, where the client is trapped in a destructive cycle, mirroring their opponent's desire for conflict, perhaps even perceiving their opponent's very existence as an affront. They are, in essence, becoming the monster in the mirror, willing to self-destruct in the process of attempting to destroy their rival. The question becomes agonizingly clear. Am I about to become a monster to defeat another monster?
So the intervention protocol here requires an incredibly delicate, empathetic, and strategic touch. You can't just tell them they're being irrational.
No, that would backfire spectacularly. First, you must use tactical empathy and advanced emotional labeling as taught in Never Split the Difference. Don't argue with their emotions. Acknowledge the client's intense desire for justice or revenge. Label their emotions explicitly. It sounds like you feel deeply wronged and that you want to see them suffer for what they've done, or it feels like securing a settlement would be an admission of defeat and you simply can't stomach that.
Make them feel heard.
Profoundly understood and heard.
Yeah.
That's the crucial first step to opening a channel for rational thought. Then, you need to help the client redefine what victory truly means. Shift the focus from the rival's defeat to the client's own well-being, long-term financial stability, and peace of mind as the ultimate authentic victory. Introduce an external model of desire, such as achieving financial freedom, restoring personal dignity through a new life path, or finding genuine peace that is independent of the rival's fate rather than mere retribution.
And bring in some stoicism.
And finally, yes, guide them towards stoic self-reflection, drawing from Marcus Aurelius's timeless wisdom. Remind them how much trouble he avoids who does not look to see what his neighbor says or does or thinks, but only to what he does himself, that it may be just and pure. Gently, yet firmly, prompt them to consider that if any man has done wrong, the harm is his own, and that their own peace and internal justice are ultimately within their power, not dependent on the other's suffering or humiliation. This aims to break the mimetic loop by internalizing the goal and fostering detachment from the rival's actions, allowing them to reclaim their own agency and well-being.
Okay, wow. Now that we've journeyed through these intricate layers and tested them in our psychological war room, it's time for phase 3. Forging the conflict dissection blueprint. The purpose here is to transform all these insights, all this deep understanding, into a practical diagnostic tool, something you, our listener, can use to analyze any human conflict you encounter, whether personal or professional. We are moving from understanding the physics of desire to a functional engineering blueprint that you can actually apply.
First up, the desire diagnostic tree. Think of it as a flowchart for uncovering motives, version 1.0. Our starting point for this diagnostic flowchart is always the observable. What is the specific behavior or conflict you are observing? From there, we proceed with a series of targeted questions to pinpoint the dominant motivational layer at play. This helps cut through the noise and surface explanations to get to the core driver.
Okay, so the first question you ask yourself is this behavior directly serving a basic, fundamental need for survival, safety, or core resources? Pretty straightforward.
Right.
If your answer is an unambiguous yes, then the primary driver is likely rooted in the biological substrate, layer 1, Dawkins stuff. We're talking about fundamental primal imperatives like securing food, shelter, physical security, or the drive for reproduction situations like fierce competition for essential resources or an animal's desperate fight for territory. If it doesn't immediately strike you as a basic survival imperative, then we proceed to the next question.
Question 2 then becomes, is this behavior driven primarily by social validation, the desire to influence others, or the need to maintain social order and adhere to group norms? If you answer yes to this, then the motivation is most heavily influenced by the social protocol interface, layer 2, or the vulnerability layer, layer 3, Carnegie and Cialdini territory. This encompasses actions like actively seeking approval, meticulously avoiding disapproval, reacting predictably to influence tactics like authority or scarcity, or adhering strictly to perceived group norms to fit in.
Like trying to win friends, following a trend, basing a decision on an anchor price.
Exactly. Or even rationalizing a minor ethical lapse because everyone else does it. If these social and cognitive elements don't quite capture the essence, you move to the deepest, most revealing question.
And the final, and often most profound question that cuts to the core. Is the desire for the object or outcome intensified because another person desires it? Or is the core motivation truly to defeat or surpass a rival?
The Girard question.
The Girard question. If this is a resounding yes, then the metaphysical desire engine, layer 4, is the dominant force. This is precisely where mimetic desire and mimetic rivalry manifest, leading to conflicts driven by status, prestige, or the symbolic defeat of an opponent, often overriding logical or even biological self-interest. Classic examples here include an escalating bidding war where price no longer matters, a relentless fight for recognition where the achievement itself is secondary, or that self-destructive vengeance we discussed. This diagnostic tree helps you quickly cut through superficial explanations to identify the core driver of conflict.
Next, we have the mimetic intervention matrix. This is a structured table designed to identify 3 common patterns of mimetic rivalry and propose targeted, actionable counter-strategies for each. This moves beyond mere diagnosis to provide practical, functional interventions.
Okay, let's start with pattern 1. Status, prestige, rivalry. This describes competition for social standing, recognition, influence, or simply being perceived as superior. The object here is often intangible, right? Like reputation, followers, acclaim.
Exactly. For counter strategies, the first is a tactical withdrawal. This means intentionally disengaging from the direct competitive struggle for status. By removing yourself as a direct mirror or model for the rival's desire, you can often deflate their own mimetic intensity. Stop feeding the fire.
Makes sense. What else?
Another strategy is to redirect energy towards an external model or shared mission. Instead of competing internally, actively frame winning as achieving collective success against an external enemy, shifting focus from internal competition to a common goal. As extreme ownership teaches, make it clear that the enemy is outside the wire, the shared external challenge, not within your team.
Focus outwards.
Right. You could also employ strategic transference of credit. Actively highlight and praise the contributions of others, including your rival, and generously share credit for successes. This diffuses envy and resentment, as the charisma that advises, by shifting the focus from individual glory to collective achievement. Finally, encourage the cultivation of internal validation, drawing from Marcus Aurelius. Foster detachment from external opinions and focus on internal principles of justice and purity, thereby strengthening the individual against the mimetic pull for external validation.
Moving to pattern 2. Resource opportunity rivalry. This pattern involves competition for specific, often tangible resources, deals, or opportunities where the value becomes wildly inflated by the rivalry itself, often far beyond its objective worth, like the auction scenario.
Exactly. Here, a key strategy is to expose the irrational escalation. Clearly articulate and demonstrate how the ongoing competition is leading to outcomes detrimental to all parties involved. Highlight the nonlinear responses and inherent fragility in such systems, echoing insights from Antifragile. Show them the true cost of their mimetic tunnel vision. Point out the absurdity.
And besides pointing out the problem,
Another powerful counter strategy is to introduce an alternative desire model. actively present other attractive options or opportunities that are not subject to the same mimetic competitive pressures. By shifting the focus of desire away from the contested object itself, you can break the mimetic spell, give them something else to want, and, critically, leverage black swans. As we discussed, proactively seek and introduce unforeseen pieces of critical information, those game-changing insights from Never Split the Difference that fundamentally alter the perceived value of the resource or the competitive landscape. This can disrupt the entire mimetic cycle and bring rationality back into the equation.
And finally, pattern 3. Attention validation rivalry, which often manifests as deeply destructive, vengeful conflict. These are situations where the primary driver is to inflict defeat, harm, or humiliation on the other party, often at great personal cost, for a twisted form of negative validation or perceived justice. The self-destructive client scenario.
Precisely. For counter strategies, you must first acknowledge and reframe emotions. Use advanced empathetic listening and labeling techniques from Never Split the Difference. Acknowledge the depth of the client's emotions, their anger, their desire for revenge, their feeling of being wronged, making them feel profoundly understood without necessarily endorsing their destructive path. Validation first.
Okay, validate the feeling, then what?
Then, crucially, you need to shift the object of desire to self-preservation and well-being. Reframe victory from the rival's defeat to the client's own well-being, long-term financial stability, or mental peace. Emphasize clearly how continuing the destructive path means becoming a monster to defeat another monster, and that true victory lies in reclaiming their own life and future. Lastly, guide them toward stoic detachment from external harm, using the Marcus Aurelius perspective. If any man has done wrong, the harm is his own. Help them understand that their own peace and justice are internal, not dependent on the other's suffering or humiliation, thereby breaking the mimetic hold and empowering their own internal compass.
Okay, this blueprint is powerful. To really internalize this framework, to make it a part of your strategic toolkit, we've developed the 3 forbidden questions. This is a pre-conflict self-interrogation directly inspired by Girard, questions you should ask yourself before you enter any competitive situation, or indeed before pursuing any significant desire.
The first question is, do I truly want this, or do I want it because they want it? The purpose here is to force a critical distinction within yourself between authentic desire, which is rooted in your own needs, values, and intrinsic motivations, and mimetic desire, which is merely a reaction to another's want, an echo of someone else's pursuit. This profound self-interrogation helps you avoid unnecessary entanglement in rivalries that don't truly serve your genuine interests.
That's powerful stuff and often uncomfortable to confront, I imagine. The second question, who is the model I am unconsciously imitating?
This helps you identify the specific individual or group whose desire is mediating your own. Understanding who your model is, whether it's a direct rival or respected colleague, or even a cultural trendsetter, is crucial. It helps you understand the underlying dynamics of your desire and, most importantly, whether that model's values and goals truly align with your own, or if you're simply chasing their shadow.
And the third and perhaps most confronting question.
Am I about to become a monster to defeat another monster? This question forces you to confront the potential for self-destructive escalation in a mimetic rivalry. It directly addresses the profound costs of engaging in mimetic violence, the cycle where each party becomes more like the adversary they're fighting. It encourages a critical pause to consider whether the perceived victory is truly worth the potential personal and ethical degradation or the loss of your own values and peace. It resonates directly with Marcus Aurelius's call to be good while you live, reminding us of the ultimate cost of losing ourselves in destructive rivalry.
So what does this all mean now that we've journeyed through the intricate layers of human motivation? We've moved from the fundamental biology that underpins us, through the complex social dynamics that govern our interactions, and finally to the powerful, often unseen force of mimetic desire that drives so much of our conflict. This deep dive has truly shown you the engineering blueprint of conflict itself. A complex system full of nonlinear responses and profound interdependencies, far more intricate than simple cause and effect.
And understanding this stack isn't just about analyzing others. It's an incredibly powerful tool for profound self-awareness. It allows you to interrogate your own desires, to see if they're truly your own authentic wants or merely reflections and echoes of someone else's. It enables you to observe the unseen forces of mimetic rivalry playing out not just in global conflicts, but in your personal and professional life, helping you navigate those complex systems with a newfound clarity and strategic insight.
Precisely. So consider this as you go about your week, as you navigate your relationships, your career, and your aspirations. How many of your daily pursuits, the things you strive for, are truly your own authentic desires, genuinely rooted in your personal needs, values, and intrinsic joy? And how many are merely echoes of what someone else wants, subtly pulling you into an unseen battle for status, recognition, or a perceived scarce resource? The path to strategic action, to genuine peace, and to a life lived on your own terms often begins with recognizing and then recalibrating the true source code of your own wants.